Guys, I watched a video recently about how quantum computers are about to break the internet, and it was a little unsettling. As a stock standard internet plebeian with a brain just a little smaller than I think it is, the real prospect of superpositional pieces of data is something that I can barely wrap my head around, and is honestly pretty spooky. I probably don't have much time, so before a quantum hacker uses 4100 qubits to decode all of my personal information and makes like a bandit, let's talk about a pixel game. Now, I hope my hook got you interested, but I've gotta come clean. We're not talking about quantum computers today. We're talking about grappling hooks in Terraria. And I'm about to hook you into this explanation of why they're one of the best items in the game. Now look, my repetition of the word hook might be an unimpressive use of a rhetorical device and is the embodiment of dad joke levels of cringe, but the grappling hook certainly is not. Forget your double jumps, your Hermes boots, your shiny red balloons, your magiluminescence. This is the best item for traversing your Terraria world in the early game, and I would even go as far to say that the pure versatility of this thing makes it one of, if not the best mobility item in the game, period. I mean, the Rod of Harmony is the best mobility item in the game, so it's kind of hard to make that statement, but you can't even get that until you beat the whole thing, so we're gonna ignore it. Now, let me teach those of you untrained in the way of the grappling hook a thing or two. If you're new to Terraria, or you've somehow just never used a grappling hook, it's an item type that comes in many shapes and forms. Almost all grappling hooks have the same base effect that, when used, the item will fling out a hook, which can grab onto blocks, pulling the player to said blocks and holding them there. This is obviously useful since it means you can get to places you can't normally reach by jumping. You can apply this ability in a lot of interesting ways, just for getting around, as I just said, but also to subvert other game mechanics in ways that are beneficial to you. For example, anyone that has played Terraria knows about fall damage. If you fall for too long without touching solid ground, your character will take damage. There are ways to prevent this from happening, like having an item that negates fall damage or double jumping before you hit the ground. You can stop a fall from happening at all with a grappling hook by hooking onto a ceiling or wall, which, duh, but all grappling hooks accelerate faster than the player falls, and because of this, you can stop a fall by firing the hook downward before you hit the ground, where it will grab onto a block below you and stop you from taking any damage. Another mechanic that you can grapple your way out of is momentum. Usually, when you're moving in one direction, you have to slow down and come to a stop before being able to build speed in the other direction. Grappling hooks are one of the few items in the game that allows you to get around this general rule. When you use a hook on a block or platform, it will always pull you directly towards it immediately, and by jumping, you can cancel the grapple and retain momentum in that direction, meaning that you have a potential 360-degree range of instant directional changes that you can use to reposition yourself. This trick isn't quite as simple and clean as just using a dash to reverse momentum, since you have to factor in the travel time of the hook, your own shifting location, and have to cancel the hook with your jump so that it doesn't just reel you in and get you stuck. Even being slightly more complex in this usage than some other items, I think that grappling hooks are still incredibly useful for momentum altering just because of how flexible they are, and because you can get some very accessory-like effects without even using an accessory. Now that I'm done using items to do things in this game that they might not have been intended for, let's talk about a couple of cool things that you can do to get around your world using a grappling hook normally. Because you can perform a full jump after grappling, you're able to get almost anywhere. You can climb up sheer walls, move along ceilings, and get onto difficult ledges, all because of the player's ability to repeatedly jump between uses of a grappling hook. You can even get around ridiculous corners like this by creating momentum to launch yourself away from it and hooking onto the other side of the block, which is basically like performing a 360 no-scope and is completely impractical, but I still find it really cool that you can do it at all. Another nifty application of the grappling hook that I find myself using throughout most of the game is vertical mining. You can mine directly upwards without ever having to build anything to stand on below you, simply by latching onto a ceiling, breaking all the blocks above you, grappling again immediately into the hole you made, and repeating this process. You can do this by hooking onto the side of the shaft as well, but I personally almost always do this with the former technique. It is even easier to do with an accessory that lets you maintain height, where even with a cloud in a bottle, you can just spam grapple and double jump while mining with smart cursor to do basically the same thing, just a little bit faster. It's kind of a really niche trick, but I make use of it surprisingly often during playthroughs, just because I want to go up sometimes. I want to end off with the fact that the grappling hook can even be used to supplement other mobility items. Double jumps, which have a charge, and wings, which have limited flight time, are reset upon hitting a grapple, meaning you can cancel or jump off of the hook and can use those accessories to their full ability again without having to touch the ground. This is something else that I find myself using all the way through the game. The reset mechanic is extremely useful for general movement in combination with the items I've mentioned, and can be invaluable in certain instances, such as against bosses later in the game, where momentum changes along with accessory resets are consistently useful against the mechanical bosses and Plantera to maintain distance, for example. And I've even found myself using a hook to dodge attacks and reset my wings against bosses like Duke Fishron and Moonlord in situations where I've mismanaged my flight time. This isn't something I commonly do by any means and is reliant on, having something to use your hook on, but it certainly is a potential useful application of the grapple and has been instrumental in me winning boss fights before. All of these things I've talked about, I feel really give my claim of best mobility items some real weight, because while the grappling hook isn't always the ideal item for every situation, sometimes it is, and when it isn't, there's still almost always a real use case for it. You don't have to agree with me, but I just really appreciate the grappling hook and what it can do for you, and I'm gonna make damn well sure that everybody knows it. That'll be it for today's video. If you also love grappling hooks or have any other grappling hook facts and tricks that I might have forgotten, then make sure to leave them in the comments. And if you disagreed with my statements and have something to slander me for, leave that in the comments too, I guess. The more the merrier. Before I make my grand exit, I would like to let you all know that I actually have a Discord server now. It was made by a request from my much appreciated livestream viewers, so feel free to join if you want to interact with myself and my current community of 13 people. I look forward to seeing you there. I'm out of here, and I will see you in the next one.